Good evening, everyone. I'll get started in about 1 minute's time. So far, we've got about 36 of you on the call. Remember, this is being recorded and be placed on the college website afterwards. Good evening, all, and welcome to the Year 7 Camp Parent Information Evening. I can see nearly about 50 of you coming in, so fantastic to see you all virtually this evening, and thank you for your time in advance. Just to clarify, this will be is being recorded, and the chat feature is available for you to use if you've got any questions and answers you would like to pose. Both Mr. Knox and Mrs. Martell are both also on the call. They'll be able to assist with answering some questions or prompt me if I'm missing any information. The recording will be on the college website for you to go back at your own leisure and watch back at any point. If there's still any questions at the end, feel free to email in and I'll go through that towards the end of the PowerPoint as we go through. So starting off, hopefully if the PowerPoint work, where it all began. So why do we do Year 7 camp? So back in 1984 was when Year 7 camp started at Botcham Village College at this old site in Thetford, before moving in about 2003 to Eaton Vale. So you might see some faces you recognise if you're in the Botcham community, or you might see some different faces from your memories if you were a student at the school from staff members. So back in 1984 was when camp started, and it's grown massively. Now we're hoping to take we've taken over the last few years about 250, 260 students from Year 7 each year. So it's a big number compared to camping in a complete field back in the 80s. So just to confirm the dates, to make sure you have got the right dates in your diaries, you might want to just check your calendars and diaries at home. Monday the 6th of July to Friday the 10th of July. The prefects from Year 11 will leave on Sunday the 5th of July. They'll be receiving a letter later this week with outlining who has been successful with that process. Eaton Vale Activity Centre, Cringleford near Norwich is where we're going. If you go to the Thickthorn roundabout, head towards Cringleford, and then towards the Waitrose and down Church Lane is where the location of the campsite. If you ever have to visit, we'll leave school on the Monday morning and return on the Friday afternoon. Okay, so Friday afternoon, students, as I'll go through the process later, will not have to return into school. Once they've returned, they can go home. It'll be early afternoon return back. It's obviously has been, as I said, a long tradition at Botcham Village College for many generations, and hopefully your child will have many experiences and memories that they'll last for many generations and years to come in the future. They'll get a camping experience and complete a 20 activity rotation. So there's some key highlights about Year 7 camp. So again, reminder, Monday the 6th to Friday the 10th of July 2026. I'm going to start by just introducing the staff that are going on the trip. I think it's really important to make sure that you're aware of which staff will be supporting your child throughout the week. So myself as trip leader, Mr. Knox as this head of learning for Year 7, Mr. Cartwright will be coming as assistant head of learning for Year 7. Miss Wadsworth is coming to lead the prefects, so she'll be in charge of the Year 11 prefects throughout the week. Mrs. Sheesby and Miss Luengo are going to be sharing the first aid duties throughout the week. They will be the people that deliver medication to your child. Any first aid emergencies will go through those two who are high level first aid trained. You can see the other staff: Mrs. Bilson, Mrs. Matthews King, Miss Costello, Miss Ryan, Miss Jago, Mr. Palmer, Mrs. Harwood, Mr. Hall, Mr. Brown, Mr. Ricketts, Mrs. Derbyshire, Miss Stern, Miss McDermott, and Mrs. Marshall will be all visiting and being there throughout the week, again supporting a child. Many of them your tutors throughout the school as well. Mr. Compton will be our CLT contact throughout the week, and he will be basing himself at Eaton Vale for a good amount of the week, overseeing what happens with Year 7. He'll also be making some journeys down the A11 back to school as well to make sure any students, getting the support they need throughout the week. Miss Popat is coming, and Mr. Umpleby as 2 TAs. And the other person that's not on the list I need to add on is Miss Taylor, Mrs. Taylor, who is the pastoral lead for Year 7. Some of you will know she's coming and also be supporting throughout the week some of our key, most vulnerable students. So hopefully that gives you an indication of which staff will be around. So plenty of staff to support all students throughout the week. Just the process of leaving, in terms of Year 7s will arrive to school as normal. So if the student collects the bus, they're welcome to get dropped off. Drop off is usually in the sports centre car park. It's important you use the sports centre, not block up Lode Road. But there will be opportunities for you to use the school bus if you would like in the morning. Got on 9 o'clock at least. If there's any public service bus students as well, they'll be able to use the public service bus to get into school. Coaches will leave once it's been loaded around 9:30, 9:45. Students will get a temporary form room they will need to go to. Usually, for example, they might go to science and go to the different science rooms, and they'll be registered temporarily in there. That information will be given to your child in the weeks coming up to camp. They'll go there, collect their bags from the sports hall, which is where our bags will be dropped off at when they arrive into school, and then they'll be allocated a coach which they'll load onto. First aid drop off will be in the Ros Sutter room next to the sports hall. So any first aid medication will need to be handed in there. Please, if you are waiting we hope you don't need to wave your child off goodbye in terms of waiting until 9:30, 9:45. Please just be aware we've got lots of trips going off that week, including Derbyshire and Normandy. So please just be aware it will be ultra busy, and you might not want to stay. So you might want to do your goodbyes either at home or near the sports hall prior to your child leaving for the trip. Year 11s will be asked to arrive at around 12:30. It'll be explained in a letter going out on Sunday. They'll be meeting in the bus park. And if I fast forward now to the end of the week, the return pick up via the sports centre car park. More information will be shared in due course from our leadership team and Mrs. Martell. Usual arrive back is around 1 o'clock. Students will be welcome to leave should you want to collect your child around 1 o'clock. They'll have definitely done their hours for the week, and they'll be able to head off and enjoy their weekends before the final week of the school year. Students welcome to go home, and obviously the option will be there though, however, for the students that want to stay in school. So if anyone wants to stay because they get a bus home, they want to stay for any other reason, they're welcome to stay until 3:10. So for clarity, arrive on buses should they wish to, or get dropped off sports centre car park, and pick up will be again in the sports centre car park by 3:10. If they want to, they can go earlier. If I now look at activities and what students will be doing whilst on camp. So students will do an activity rotation of 20 activities throughout the week. Every student will have the opportunity to do all of the activities. No student will be made to do an activity that they don't want to do. We obviously might put support in place. For example, one of our teaching assistants or Mrs. Taylor might be able to support your child if they've got particular anxieties about a certain activity. We urge your child to speak to a form tutor or one of the key staff at camp, and they'll be able to support your child where possible. 11 of the activities are led by Eaton Vale, and 9 have been led by Bottisham staff and some of our prefects. We do 3 activities on Monday, 6 on Tuesday, 6 on Wednesday, 5 on Thursday, and nothing on Friday in terms of activities. That's mainly because in the past, when we've done some activities on the last day, if it's, for example, raft building on the last day, they don't get the full experience about getting wet. So it's just making sure every student has the opportunity to do all activities throughout. Activities will start about 9:15, 9:30 in the morning and run till about 9 p.m. in the evening. So please be aware, if you're trying to contact us at camp, we are busy all day, every day. That's why when we get onto communication, it's really important that communication is done through the channels we ask, rather than maybe expecting an immediate response from us at camp, because we might be, your child might be on an activity even late in the evening, for example, on the river. So therefore, it might be harder to get communication to them. So just having a little look at some of the activities that your child will be doing. Archery, air rifles, tomahawks, which is like axe throwing, climbing on a indoor climbing wall, crate stacking, Jacob's ladder, climbing challenge, trapeze, canoeing, kayaking, and raft building. They're all activities led by Eton Vale. What I will cover, just a little bit in terms of water activities. Canoeing, students will stay mostly dry, so they should not get wet. Doing canoeing is the agreement we have with Eton Vale. Wet, so they will need wet clothes definitely for kayaking. And then raft building, they can get as soaked as they want, including a jump in the river if they want to. So the River Yar, I think it is, in Norwich. So feel free just to make sure that's a mental note for packing, in terms of hopefully that aids your packing when they'll need wet clothes. So raft building, absolutely get soaked should they wish to, don't have to. It's hard to not get soaked. A little bit of raft building. Kayaking, they'll get a little bit of splash wet. Canoeing should stay dry, hopefully. Activities which are going to be led by Bottisham staff or prefects will involve buggy building, Mr. Palmer's favourite, and pioneering, which is like catapults, backwards cooking, so making some bread and then cooking over open fires, team building challenges, cave bus, low ropes, pyrography, assault course, sledging and go-karts. Just one thing in terms of the cave bus, they will need to wear long trousers for that activity. It is on the kit list for the evening campfires, but they will need to be wearing long trousers slash something on their arms, because they don't want to get burns from crawling through small tunnels. And reminder, no one is forced to do any activity they don't want to, but we expect them to be still with their group on those different activities. So for example, if there isn't a challenge that they don't want to do, so for example, go on the water, we expect them to still be with their group and prefects maybe on the land side of the water. This is roughly, very quickly, a overview of what students will have a look at. You don't need to look at it now. This is how groups will be split up throughout the week. Eton Vale, as you can see, have mixed up the activities. So they won't just do, for example, all the water ones together. It will go between a mix between Bottisham led, Eton Vale led, as they go throughout the week. So hopefully getting periods of maybe more excitement and then calmer activities mixed in as we go through. So as you go through, Macrame Craft is, for example, a little bit of quite a nice calm activity inside the building. And our board game Bonanza in there is another activity, which is looking at some different board games. A nice calm activity. Just a few photographs just to go through. So you'll see at the top, you've got the unloading of the coaches outside the main building, main centre, activity centre at Eton Vale. Inside there is the indoor climbing wall and the canteen and a few other things for there. The tents, you'll see there'll be zones of tents. If we work away along the top, there'll be zones of tents for each form group, and there'll probably be 2 forms per zone. And then we have also an open tent where students are organising themselves. So you can see, I'll talk about tents a little bit more in detail, and you can see what a tent looks like, roughly that size as you go through. I've put the middle row on the left-hand side. You'll see some lovely girls that have bought their luggage. You'll see the size of their luggage. There is no maximum size bag, there's no minimum size bag, but they might want to consider each other in the tent. If they all bring huge giant suitcases, it might be a little bit tight for space. So when we get onto tent allocations, It might be a conversation they have, but you can see the type of luggage that most people are bringing there. Eton Vale staff in the middle, and then we've got some activities, some team building games and activities, crate stacking on the right hand side. Low ropes is now not an activity in terms of what we deliver at camp, but we've also got the canteen down at the bottom. So you can see canteen tables of areas where students will sit, and they can eat outside should they wish to as well, and they'll walk through and have the opportunity to say if they don't want something put onto their food. When I talk about food, I'll cover that in a second, but that photograph might, as they walk through down the line, they'll be able to say, for example, beans, yes or no, as they go through. Camping arrangements, sleeping arrangements. I know many students will be slightly nervous about this, but after May half term, students take groups and tents. Form tutors will be central to this process. So what I've prepared a spreadsheet with Mr. Knox, and that'll be going out to form tutors for the first week back after half term. Students will be asked to select students they're happy to be with. Form tutors will then place them into tents. So I've allocated each form group, for example, so many 4-people tents, so many 2-people tents, etc. And form tutors will be then trying to do a best fit model. Now, students will be camping in sizes of 1 to 8. So there'll be some students that might choose to and need to be camping alone, which is absolutely fine. Some students might be camping in groups of up to even 8 people, but most groups are about 4 to 5 people maximum. We tend to try and only put 3 or 4 people maybe in a 5-person tent, because we know that when it's at full capacity, it's always a little bit more cramped, the space. But that depends a little bit on the form group and the allocations. We have spare tents, which we work with form tutors to build as well. Student camp groups will be mostly built around form groups. However, there will be the odd exception to that. If your child is particularly anxious about the camping process, what will be is after the students have been allocated a tent by the form tutor, Mr. Knox, myself, and Mr. Cartwright will go through all of the different groups we've got, and then look for any students that potentially need to go cross form groups as well. Form tutors will then be invited to a meeting. We'll sit around the table, and then we'll be able to allocate any final tent spaces. And it might be, for example, 7-1. There might be someone that needs to join with 7-3, and we'll allocate them a temporary form group. So it might be they join 7-1 or 7-3 for the week. So they might not stay with their form group if that is the case. And that's hopefully on a very low number of cases throughout. So students will write down who they want to share a tent with. This will be in form groups. Form tutors will allocate tents within form groups and make a list of students that might benefit from sharing outside the form group as well. Meet and discuss allocation of tents as well, and then draft tents to be shared with us. The final list of tent groups will be shared at the parent information evening on the 15th of June. We've learned a lesson from last year where we had everyone crowding around in the Evans Auditorium. If you've got children who went last year, we'll have them around the principal's lawn, so you can go around and have a look for your child and see which groups they're going to be in. Students will spend most of their time with their on activity groups. Okay, so camp tents are not that critical in terms of time they're spent with. So they're study group based. So activities will be mainly study groups. And again, there'll be the odd case where there'll be a bit of movement between them. But on the whole, it'll be study groups, which students will be more familiar with throughout for the activities. Study groups will change over the 5 years at Bottisham. However, form groups will see minimal change. So just bear that in mind. So students will need to hopefully build relationships, strong relationships with other members of their form group. Once we arrive at camp, if something isn't working, we can always help and make alterations. So please don't worry if something you're sat here now and you're thinking, my child's really nervous about this. And when we get to camp, we urge them to speak up and raise that with their form tutor, and then we can make those changes if needed. Hopefully we're not, but sometimes those changes might need to happen, but we are open to, if necessary, making those changes there. And after a certain date, we'll say no more changes until we arrive at camp, just to be clear. Within each tent, there are usually 2 free pods where students can be separate if needed. So for example, you might have a 5-person tent. A lot of our Gelert 5 tents will have 2 pods. They'll have an area in the middle for luggage and then 2 pods for sleeping in. So it might mean that if you've got 4 students, they might be 1 pair of students and they're not quite sure about the other pair. They can go into 2 separate pods. So that might be the format moving forward. So just bear that in mind, those points when we're talking about tents. In terms of food, this is an example. I know we had lots of questions about this. Food catering example menu. Cereal, fruit, toast, brown and white will be available for breakfasts. There'll be a choice of cereals. I run the breakfast, so I'll be regularly getting Asda and Tesco deliveries arriving to Eaton Vale and being able to produce hopefully a breakfast, which means that if students want to come back for more, they can do. It's hopefully going to be nutritional and have an opportunity for them to build those key energy for the rest of the day. All I'd say is in terms of cereal, it might be that they've got Honey Loops and they normally have Cheerios. Those type of compromises your child might have to put up with, but other than that, there'll be a range of different types of cereal available. For the toast, there'll be butter and then a few choice of jams and marmalades, etc. to put on should they wish to. If a child still is hungry at the end of breakfast, we urge them again to come and speak to us because it's one of the most important meals of the day to make sure that they are fully fed and got the energy for the day ahead. Lunches and evening meals are provided by Eaton Vale and an external catering company to Eaton Vale who work alongside them. So a selection of wraps, sandwiches will be served with crisps, fruit and a biscuit bar at lunchtime. They will be a range of things from jam sandwiches to cheese, ham, etc. All the usual types of sandwiches there. And again, if it's a real issue, we urge your child to come and speak to their form tutor, speak to Mr. Knox, speak to myself, and then we will try and help where possible. Example evening meal. So I know the evening meals are sometimes the sticking point. We've had it confirmed from the caterers. This is what our schedule will be this week or this time at camp. Pasta bolognese and vegetable bolognese and garlic bread. Reminder, when they walk along, think of that photograph I showed earlier. The food can be just put pasta on the plate, pasta and garlic bread, should your child not wish to venture into the pasta bolognese sauce. Okay, should they not want to have the vegetable bolognese sauce, etc. So they want to walk along the line and say, no, sorry, thank you, I'll just have the pasta and garlic bread. That is absolutely fine. Okay, sausage and mash on the Tuesday evening. Wednesday, breaded chicken with baby potatoes. And Thursday will be barbecue burger, vegetable burgers and potatoes, etc. So that will be our menu throughout the week. If there's any major concerns with any of those things, you can obviously contact me. I will have a little bit of a stock of bland food. So for example, some pasta, for example, which on the side for, in a very small number of cases, etc. So we urge your child to speak to their form tutor if there is an issue. We do not want any child to go hungry, but obviously we are catering for about 250, 260 people, including staff and prefects in excess of that, to be honest, near pushing towards 300. So therefore it's really important that your child is open to maybe a slightly different type of sausage that they might be used to, or it might be a slightly different form of bread, might be a different brand of cereal, etc. If your child has dietary requirements, it's really important you put them on the form. Only dietary requirements that are on the form, which will get passed to the external caterers and which I will read for breakfasts, will be able to be catered for. Fussy eaters, I'm afraid, that's a very different type of, if it's not on the form, it's very different, to cater that with the external caterers in particular. Okay, so please make sure any dietary requirements are listed clearly on the form. Okay, and then we can obviously work through that. On the first day, dietary requirements will be asked to go first, and probably for the remainder of the week they'll go first to make sure that they get spoken to, and they can check packaging, for example, if they want to check the where, for example, the box of cereal, they can just double check if they engage with your child, and hopefully they'll understand what they can and can't have, because if they want reassurance, we can say this is the box we got it from, and they can have a look at that. Okay, Reminder, these will be passed on to the catering teams. For breakfast, we'll be asking students to bring a bowl and a spoon. This makes washing up really easy for breakfast, and we can give more variation. So, as I said, people can come back for more if they're still really hungry, but we will have cereal, toast, etc., where students can come back for. But we ask them to bring a bowl and a spoon. There'll be washing up stations around the patio area where they can go and wash up their bowl, wash up their spoon as well. Kit list. In terms of, there's lots of different items on the kit list. This year I've put it into required, essential items, optional, and items not needed. Some items you might say, well, actually it's on the required item, but my child doesn't really need it. That's absolutely fine. You can make that decision. And some items are on the optional list. You think, well, that's very compulsory. So it depends on your child's, some of the points on there. I'm just going to cover a few things. Obviously the large rucksack, just think about the size of the tent. As I said earlier, if you've got a huge bag and 3 or 4 of you have got it, it's going to make it a little bit tight for space. Obviously, if it rains, you don't want things outside. So just be aware of that as you go from there. Warm sleeping bag, a towel. I would recommend 2 towels, one for general washing, if you want to have a shower, for example, and then one maybe to take down to the river, should they wish to, as an extra thing. T-shirts, plenty of T-shirts throughout the week. We don't want too many smelly children. And remember, again, they might get dirty, smelly, etc. Warm jumpers and fleeces, including long sleeve, and that goes for long sleeve trousers as well. So need a pair of long sleeve trousers and a long sleeve top of some description for campfire, because mosquitoes are around in the evenings, and also if there's any embers that came off the fire, it's really important they are covered. So please make sure that the students are prepared for that. Also, cave bus, as I said earlier, will involve crawling around, so they might want to make sure they're fully covered there. Waterproof jackets and trousers, hopefully not needed. You can have a look at the forecast, but at your own risk if you don't bring them. Obviously, we could have 30 degrees like we are going to have this weekend, or we could have pouring rain. Fingers crossed, we should have good weather throughout camp. Obviously, at night, the temperature does drop, so it's important your child has layers to support them throughout the evening and make sure they don't get too cold. I've added a few things on that. Footwear. You need to make sure that your child has got footwear for the river as well as footwear around the campsite. So to clarify that, they can't wear sliders, Crocs, etc. going into the water. They must wear probably a trainer, an old pair of trainers. If you're about to throw a pair of trainers out, keep them for camp and they can wear them in the water. It's the same if staff go in the water. We don't know what's down at the bottom of the river. We don't know if there's any sharp objects, etc. If they're jumping into the river, if they're going on canoes, kayaks, etc., they do need to have shoes and footwear on, which is not a slider. Okay, at Eaton Vale, staff will not allow sliders onto the water. Well, obviously the wash bag, etc. Bag for dirty clothes is recommended. Obviously, you hopefully they'll, as it's got on there, dry this clothes for any clothes that might be wet because they've been soaked, so dry them out so it doesn't smell out the tent, and then they can put them in their dirty bag for you to clean when you get home. Reusable water bottles. We'll have squash and water. There's always available for students, but they do need to bring their own water bottle. We don't have cups. We don't have water bottles for every child. Please ensure that they are bringing a water bottle, and it'd be best if you name it with a marker pen or label, however you do it. If they lose it or forget about it, we can return it to them throughout the week. So they might want to bring 2, bring 1, don't mind, 1 for squash, 1 for water. We'll have opportunities to fill them up throughout the week. On the side of the building there is multiple taps, and there are taps around the campsite near the tents as well, which they can use as well, which are all drinking water. Packed lunch for Monday. So first meal that Year 7s will get is on Monday evening. Okay, Monday evening is the first meal they'll get. Prefects will get lunch on Monday because they'll have been there since Sunday, but they need to make sure they've got a packed lunch for Monday evening, Monday lunchtime. A few optional items, obviously roll mats optional should you wish to. Eye masks are I've put on the optional but could easily go on the required. On the first night, I'm sure people will be up at 3, 4 a.m. Waking us up. Mr. Baker used to do that call. Now one of us, myself or Mr. Knox, will be doing that, getting up at 3, 4 a.m. because unfortunately the sun rises so early and students will think it's time to get up, however many times we tell them. So it might be they want an eye shade to try and prolong that time a little bit later. Okay, earplugs as well, should they wish to. We recommend a torch because if they want to go to the toilet in the night, there's a short walk, depending which camp zone you're in, to the main building block there. Items not needed, you'll see, and I'll cover that here. Mobile phones. Mobile phones are not needed for year 7s. Communication will come via a controlled method. Mr. Knox, Mr. Cartwright and myself will have iPads and laptops. We will ring via the school Teams account. Mr. Knox will have a call sort of sign-up sheet log, which he'll have throughout the day, which will have controlled times when he's going to do those calls. So unless there's something absolutely urgent, he will be doing them, for example, between 7 and 8 in the evening. He'll get all his calls done. We'll have 3 or 4 iPads lined up, 3 or 4 laptops lined up, and students will be able to make those calls if they need to. The key point I want to raise here is we control the communication, not your child. So it's absolutely essential that your child does not bring a mobile phone. It will be confiscated if they do. For safeguarding reasons, we can't have phones in tents, etc., etc. If your child has got a medical reason for needing a mobile phone, they need to let us know as soon as possible. So then we can then put obviously help, make sure guidance is in place for that. Should you wish to contact your child throughout the week, it's really important that potentially you contact the school and the number that's on the letter, which will be sent out the week before camp. That will be triaged. That could go to Mr. Compton, for example, and then he will triage what we need to know as staff on camp. It might be that we're busy dealing with something which is very important, and we aren't able to take a call at that particular moment in time. The member of staff on the other end of the phone will be able to triage and let us know at an appropriate time and assess how urgent that call is. It might be that call then is put into Mr. Knox's call log, and then we can obviously have that conversation with the child should it be needed. Other electrical equipment, valuables, etc. Hopefully tents, it's not going to pour with rain, but if it does, obviously please be aware of that as you're going throughout. So please just make sure you're not bringing really expensive items, other electrical equipment, which you'd be heartbroken to loss if it got lost or broken. And likewise clothes as well, anything that's potentially high value. I wouldn't be going camping. We're not going on a it's a glamour walk. Okay, it's not, no one's going to be assessing your potentially your aesthetics throughout the week. So please just make sure that you're not going to be devastated if something got damaged, lost, broken, ripped, anything, because anything can happen when you're out and about in the outdoors. Snacks, including nuts. Tents should be food free to avoid ants and vermin. I'm going to put this photo on there now at the top right hand corner, which we don't want ants in the tents. So please make sure the child, particularly that packed lunch on a Monday, if they don't eat anything, really it goes in the bin. They need to eat it or goes in the bin rather than staying in the tent. I'm sure their friends and their peers will not be very happy if there's lots of ants and vermin coming to the tent. Deodorant cans, roll on only, please. Again, think of others in their tents. It's small space. We have got some asthmatic students coming this year. So again, please just make sure you're aware of other people there. You don't need a tent. We've got tents. We've got about 75 tents for all of year 7. So please just be aware we don't need tents for them. Year 11s do, but that'll be explained in a separate letter to them. Again, Bosham Village College cannot be accepting any responsibility for any damage should a student bring an item listed above. If any prefects are on the call, just a quick note that that's 12:30 on Sunday. They'll be leaving and they'll be bringing their own tent. They'll need to speak to me if it's an issue, and prefects will not be allowed off site during the week unless obviously they've pre-agreed they're going home early with their parents, etc. And they are allowed to, if they need, have that conversation with me if they need anything in particular. Prefects will be going around with the year 7s on all activities. And when they're going around on all activities, there'll be at least 2 prefects per activity group. They may be able to do some of the activities with the students, some of them not, because groups of 12 for the water, for example, is the instructor numbers. So it's just important to make sure that they are aware of that as they go. Thursday, session 1, if you notice, only 5 sessions for year 7 on Thursday. Session 1 will be allocated for prefects. They'll get the opportunity to do any activities they might have missed out on throughout the week, particularly if it's their favourite one. In each evening, there'll be a little sign-up sheet. Mrs. Wadsworth will be sorting out a prefect session on a rota basis for some of the other evening activities. And their role at camp is to support year 7s on activities, lead some of the activities, and be the first port of call for year 7 students throughout the week, and support staff with duties around the campsite, and hopefully make that the experience for year 7s the most memorable possible. Just a couple of more slides. What a day at camp looks like. Students might wake up around 7:30 in the morning. Breakfast is usually between 8 and 9 in the morning, and around 9:30 we'll start our morning activities there, and we'll go through 2 activities before lunch. There'll be obviously a 15-minute handover or changeover period, particularly if those are on water. So if you're on activity 2 and you're on the water, you might want to make sure around breakfast time, after you've had your breakfast, you've got ready to get yourself in a position where you can you don't have the long delays, you don't miss any activity time. 3 activities after lunch, and then 1 activity after dinner. Okay, campfire will finish the evening each night. Campfire can vary in length depending on how students are engaged with, and we'll do some singing, we'll do some other forms of reflections on the day, and being able to hopefully think about all the challenges that students have faced and gone past. Prepare for bed, and then there'll be a time when students, we expect them to be in their tents, and then eventually 10-15 minutes later we'll go campsite should be silent. We expect students to respect that, to make sure that the campsite is silent, to allow people to sleep. Staff will be staying up incredibly late throughout the week, and we'll have a rota. Myself and Mr. Knox will probably be up most of the night, certainly for the first few nights anyway, into the early morning. So please make sure that students are there. Or students have been, your child has been explained the importance of going to bed and sleep and not disturbing others, because a campsite, it can be in a quiet environment, can spread noise quite quickly, and it's not very nice if you don't get a lot of sleep. It makes people feel ill, it makes people not necessarily enjoy the camp as much as they want. I will be camping, sleeping outside. Mrs. Wadsworth will be as well. We'll have a chalet, which if we're not camping in an actual tent, there'll be also a chalet which is next door to the campsite, in the middle of it. So students will be shown that on their first tour, where they need to go to in the middle of the night if there's any emergencies. Okay, so there'll be a place where they can come to knock on me / Mrs. Wadsworth. There'll be a tent / chalet. Medication. All medication will need to be handed in. It's really important, all medication to be handed in, clearly labelled with names, original packaging, and labelled with dosage. There will be a medication drop-off point on Monday morning, which will be in the Ros Sutter room next to the sports hall. The reason why all medication has to be handed in, you might think, oh, okay, it's only an antihistamine, but potentially if a student that got mixed up with somebody else's medication tablet, someone could take the wrong tablet, someone could think, oh, I'll try that, and it might not be potentially what they need. Also, if heaven forbid we have to go to hospital, and we go to the Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital, which is near, just on the outside near Heverset. If we have to go to that hospital ever at all, we will take any medication that child has got, and we will give it straight to the hospital staff, just to make sure that they know exactly what it is. That's why we want it in the original packaging. So please just make sure you're not trying to potentially do us a favor. That's the reason why, because we can take it and they can just double check, because even different forms of paracetamol, ibuprofen, etc., could have different levels of dosage in different cases. So we the hospital staff are going to be higher level trained to be able to assess and give the quickest support to your child. Just finally, next steps: ensure payment plans are up to date. There's a few of you on WisePay that are a little bit behind. Please just make sure you do that as soon as possible. Use half term and the upcoming paydays to make sure that is up to date before Mrs. Lakovic in the trips office will have to be chasing, and we don't want to be doing that because she's got a lot of trips going on, and that's quite a lot of work for people. Ensure the code of conduct form is completed. I will have a list up at the in-person information evening if there are any people that haven't done it, so please just make sure it's done as soon as possible. Medical, it's really important that's up to date, particularly if there's a medical need or concern that's overnight and it's something the school wouldn't usually be aware of. So for example, if there's some certain forms of medication needed for the evenings, but they might not usually take it during the school day, that's really important for us to know. And dietary, again, we'll be passing medical and dietary all over to Eton Vale. So please just make sure we're aware of that. Anything you put on the form will be given straight to Eton Vale and the catering team. If you have any questions, contact your form tutor in the first instance, if not the trips email or myself. On Monday, the 15th of June it's got moved, so just make sure you've got that date in your diary, a face-to-face information evening. This is a second information evening, and we'll give specific details about logistics of drop-off and pick-up. Activity groups will give you the students in each group, which will be, again, study group-based. Tent groups, which will be mainly form group-based. Medication, which to finalise a few bits around that, and a chance to meet key staff ahead of the camp. So if you've got any questions, you can speak to us. I'll check the Q&A section in a second, but if you have, so you can pop any questions in the Q&A there, on hopefully on Teams here. If you have any further questions, please contact your form tutor in the first instance there. Trips email address is there if should you need to, and that's triage. Myself and Mrs. Lakovic have access to that, and we go through that on a daily basis. Just a few things. If my child is nervous about going, just really try and hopefully convince them that's perfectly normal. It is normal for them to feel anxious and nervous, because what we really want to do is make sure every child has the best experience throughout camp. So please just make sure you're engaging with your child and giving them the information. If they haven't watched tonight, maybe give them the opportunity to watch this information there. Once my child needs to contact me during the week, they'll come and speak to Mr. Knox and he'll add them to the call list. If you need to contact your child throughout the week, you'll contact the emergency number, will be sent on the letter, and then that information will be given to Mr. Knox and I, and then we'll process depending on what the need is. If they don't like the food, they hopefully will maybe try some of those different foods if they've not had them at home before. If not, speak to the form tutor, speak to me, speak to Mr. Knox. No student should go hungry at Year 7 camp. I will have food for them. I might not make it public to everybody what food I've got available, but I will have extra food for them. Okay. If your child doesn't like the tent or activity group, speak to the form tutor. But there'll be a point just a couple of weeks before where we go no, because we'll be printing out lists. And then when we get there, we might be able to make a couple of alterations should we need to. Okay, but it's a good opportunity for people to try new things. And it might be that they know 2 or 3 people in the group, but they wanted 5, but they've only got 2 or 3. Well, that's brilliant. Okay, not everyone will be able to be with everybody they particularly want. If they forget something important, you're welcome to drop it off, depending on what it is. If it's, for example, a toothbrush, I might be able to help because I might have a few spares. But other than that, it depends. Obviously, it depends what it is. You can contact the school and drop it off at main reception because we will have staff coming up and down throughout the week as well. If my child doesn't want to do an activity, speak to the prefect, speak to the form tutor, speak to different members of staff, and they'll be able to support and help you throughout the week. No one is forced to do an activity they don't want to do. So they don't want to go up high, they don't want to go on the water. Absolutely fine. We can help with that. If your child behaves poorly, hopefully that doesn't happen. But we have had instances where in the past, we will contact you wherever there's a warning sign about any of that. And it can result in you having to drive up to Eton Vale. So please make sure that you are available and answer your phone. And it might be we're letting you know about anything else. So please answer your phone if it comes up as a unknown number or a different type of number or the school number at different times of the day. Okay, please encourage your child to make sure that they are aware of the expectations. We will use the warning, moving and removing, same as we would in school system at Year 7 camp. And every student has the right to be respected at camp. So certain things will result in automatically going home. If there's certain boundaries that are crossed. For example, leaving the campsite would automatically result in a child going home. If a child was going down near the river without any accompanying, again, we'd ask them to go home straight away, because those are the boundaries we'll be placing on the students when we get there. But if it's something quite minor, we can work with the child, hopefully, like we would in school. So hopefully that has answered all your questions. I'm going to go to the Q&A very quickly for you just to double check anything in there. And again, thank you for your time this evening. If there's anything you want to clarify, nighttime security and the measures placed keeps those. Will there be any adults in tents? Yes. So what will happen is in the evenings, there'll be a member of staff probably staying up to about 1, 2 a.m., maybe later, depending on the situation. They will be sat usually right in the middle of the campsite, walking around the campsite. Once students are completely silent in, sleep and sound asleep, and it's, very late into the early hours of the morning, we'll have a tent, and we'll have a shift where we take it in turns to be up throughout the night. Students will be given that knowledge where that tent is, with a particular tent, if they need us in the middle of the night for an emergency. Also, people will be able to work out if they're in tents with other students. Hopefully they'll be able to, come and alert us if there's an issue. We'll have staff on standby throughout the night with a radio, which will only go off if that needs to be there. Okay. I haven't got anything else. Will they be able to bring a football? I would suggest that's probably not the best place. It's not the best place to be playing football. Because there's a lot of guy ropes. We ask students to have shoes on their feet all week. We have had instances in the past where students have tripped on guy ropes, etc. So and tent pegs, etc. And there's an incident that happened many years ago regarding that. So please just be aware that it's probably not the best place to be bringing a football. How many sets of clothing do you need for wet activities? Wet kayaking, you're going to get a bit wetter. So you should stay dry or canoeing. Kayaking, you're going to get a bit wet, and then raft building, they get the opportunity to jump into the river, should they wish to. On his birthday on camp, we will definitely celebrate that and sing happy birthday, remind me nearer the time. I also will just let you know now, if England play in the World Cup this summer, we've had it in the past, and it involves an England game or a country of their own nationality, please don't worry, we will have provision for your child. The only thing will happen is possibly they will have the opportunity for them to watch the football or continue with their activity. There won't be an opportunity to revisit any activities missed. So if they're meant to do canoeing and they really want to do canoeing, it'll be a canoeing or football. Okay, it won't be a case of us being able to go back and say, actually, we'll add canoeing in to move it to tomorrow. So that's how we've done it in the past. So just be aware, reassure your child. If England are going to be in a knockout game of the World Cup, which is, I think it's knockout stages then, we will make sure there's provision if should the game clash. Although some of the kickoff times are in the very early hours of the morning, so we will have to put a plan together on that one. Other than that, I think that is all the questions answered. So thank you very much for your time this evening. And I wish you all the best, and hopefully see you on the 15th of June on Monday in the Evans Auditorium. Thank you very much.